big hype now is to bring up, there's a message goes through the underworld of all the grapevine, all the bigwigs. The big message now is to bring up Elizabeth Taylor back to where she used to be. Now, all the hype and the propaganda is to say, Elizabeth Taylor is a great, beautiful woman. She's the most wonderful creature of all time. Now, all the hype, all the media has been told to do this, and they're doing it. All of a sudden, I read the papers and I think, God, she must be some kind of super goddess. All these films I saw her in were really crappy, except the one, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Oh, I read it. Oh, I missed something. And then there's even a quote from J.D. Salinger. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And when I was a kid, and I'm 61, when I saw her as a kid, now this not, okay, I did. I thought, that woman is really ugly. Her face is ugly. Her eyes are ugly. Her mouth is ugly. And I always thought that Elizabeth Taylor is one of the most ugly women I've ever seen. She was the most portentous, evil, grabbing, gross. She exemplifies the female creature grabbing for everything because her lips are formed a little bit like that, and her eyebrows are a little bit like that, her eyes are a little bit like that, and her hair is a little bit like that. That has nothing to do with beauty. That has things to do with the mathematical equation of where the chin should be and the ear should be. Beauty is nothing. It's an idea of something. The gods don't give beauty. The gods don't give beauty. There's no idea of physical beauty. So she's a stupid woman. Oh my God, it makes me sick. I'm sorry. And she can sue me for saying it. I'll stand on it. You can put it right on in. I said what I said. I will say, Elizabeth Taylor, you are an ugly woman. And we will go into the courts to prove whether you're ugly or beautiful. And the judges will say you're beautiful, but the gods of everywhere beyond this place will know that you were not beautiful. Just ears were formed in a certain way. Your mouth was formed in a certain way. Your eyes were formed a certain way. But you were not beautiful, Elizabeth Taylor. You were hardly anything. This is beautiful. That was during World War II. And, of course, I was one of the few guys who was not interested in World War II. It's a very patriotic time. Now, the Jane Fonda anti-war things didn't take much courage, because everybody was against them. She's up there screaming, wiggling her ass against the war. That doesn't take any courage, But during World War II, if you were against the war, man, you were a cockroach, But like I always said, there aren't any good wars, there aren't any bad wars. Guys get killed, they get their balls blown off. And somebody wins and somebody loses. And when it's all over and the smoke clears, just re-corruption re-corrupts. But getting back to the Zoot Suiters, they were about my only allies because I wasn't interested in the war. And the Mexicans weren't either because they were starving on the east side of LA. So they were quite neat, these Mexicans. They wore these things called zoot suits, and they carried little knives, razors. They go around attacking the U.S. troops, cutting sailors' throats, murdering them, beating the shit out of them in gangs. And, that was quite beautiful because it was so much against the tide of American feelings and patriotism. I thought, shit, these guys are just like I am. They're not interested in the war. In fact, they even don't like it. Well, I didn't dislike it. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to me, I didn't want to cut a sailor's throat. If he wants to go to the war, let him go. Hey, baby, save the world. But these guys were actually quite magic, and I felt a great affinity toward them, but I didn't want to join their gangs because what's a whitey going to come in? Hey, man, I'll help you cut a sailor up, Hey, here's this white-faced guy. But anyhow, anything against the normal tide, when the tide is going all this way, and any group stands up and goes a little bit that way, they interest me very much. It's so easy just to go, So the Zoot Suiters were very interesting. And now I guess in our times they've become kind of magic heroes. I make little plays about them. And
One, two,
but at
three,
that time,
four,
it was very difficult for them. And finally, the Navy got very angry against the Mexicans, and they would sailors would go into East LA and just grab a Mexican and just beat the shit out of them, they'd run through the whole town. They just start beating up Mexicans, because all Mexicans were Zoot Suiters. So, that's how that went. That ended up badly, because there are more guys in the Navy than there are Zoot Suiters. So there you go. It was a very glamorous gang. I liked the minor swelling against authority at that time. That's all.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So one time we were working in this comic book house, and these two clerks got in an argument about comic books. Somebody counted a rack of stack of comic books wrong. The other one's arguing about it. I said, Jesus Christ, this job isn't even a comic book house. It's even worth arguing about. Well, that's the first time we heard you speak in a couple of weeks. We all know you always think you're a genius. We know you think you're a genius. We know you think you're a genius. That's all these teeth come out. All the faces. I wasn't trying to be a genius. I just didn't want to be in a comic book house. I want to be out in the park. I want to be sailing down a river in a sailboat. I wanted anything decent. I could not resign myself to the 8-hour job of nothingness. I could not understand it. That's all. So I bummed and I bummed and I bummed. It was one job after another. It was a park bench. It was a job in Dallas. It was a job in Atlanta. It was a job in Miami. Name the city somewhere south. I've been there.
And that's how one day you ended up in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, Philadelphia. First I ended up in New York. Then New York was so bad I thought, I want to go to a nice, shady, quiet city. Everything is calm, the people are decent, there's no trouble. Philadelphia, what do they call it? The city of brotherly love. I'll just go there where people are dumb, they don't fuck with anybody. I went there, it was tougher than New York. They killed on the streets, they bribed the cops. My first night in this bar I'm writing about, that's what appeased me, attracted me. I walked in half dead. I just went in for a beer. It wasn't even a night. It was about 1 PM. I walked in, and the place was packed. It was in a poor neighborhood. I sat down, drank a beer, looked around. was packed. Everybody was crazy and drunk. They're all drinking beer, but all of a sudden, here came a bottle flying through the air. This guy next to me, I found his name's Danny Freely, turns to me, he says, "You ever do that again, man? I'll kill you." I said, "Boy, this is the place I want to be. Something's finally happening." Another bottle flew by through there, crashed. The bartender just poured another drink. He didn't say anything. I said, "This is my nirvana. Everything's happening. Open violence, decent open violence." And then two guys got in a fight. They started slamming it around. And I went to take a piss, still fighting. And I went right through them. I said, "Okay, pardon me, gentlemen." And they both stood aside. And they started fighting again. When I came back, I said, "Pardon me, gentlemen." I said, "This is my heaven. I'm going to drink in this bar. I'm going to fight like this and live like this." And this is the thing that I'm talking about. This bar, this bar. You know what happened? That night never repeated again. It was like they had all planned it for me. And the same people were there, and I waited and I waited. I waited 2.5 years. I went away a year, and I came back. I waited 2.5 years again. I sat in the stool. There was never any night that first afternoon. I was trapped into a dream that I wanted. That's all. Bad shit. But you were not beautiful, Elizabeth Taylor. You were hardly anything. This is beautiful.